Let's get this thing all going here. Let's see, where's the share button? There's the share button. All right, cool. Got that started. Now we just have to wait for people to show up. That's always the fun part, waiting for anybody to get here. Yeah. Let's see what this button does. I really, did I wear the right shirt? I don't know if I did or not. I think I did. There we go. We got a couple of people in here. How you doing, everybody? Hope you guys are good. I'm just making sure that I can see your comments. So if the two of you that are here right now, if y'all could drop a comment below the live so I can make sure that I can read those and see those. And yep, microphone's on. Everybody should be able to hear me just fine. There we go. Cool. Now we got some comments coming through. Sweet. Hope everybody's doing well. We just finished up dinner over here. Hope you guys are having a good evening. We're going to get this thing kicked off here in just a few minutes. I've got a few things that I'm going to talk about that I have lists that were asked about in the group. So we're going to check that out first. And then after that, we'll probably do some Q&A type stuff as long as we have enough speed with the questions. YouTube has a little bit of a lag with the questions and stuff when you guys type until I see it. It's about 30 seconds or so. So if you type something and I don't see it immediately, that's why. Hey, Nancy and Thomas. Himikuda is here. K13. How do you say your name? Is the line? I hope I said that right. Hope everybody's doing well. We'll wait a few more minutes just to get a few more people in here. I just shared it into the group. So should be coming along here pretty soon. What's everybody think about this? Do we like this? I got a couple of caves and stuff going on over here. And tank it's cycling pretty well. So it's going to be finishing up hopefully in about a week or so. I'm super excited to get some stuff put back in here. So, all right. Well, there's a few people here anyway. Hopefully more people will join us. So I got a couple of questions here that came from the group. So I'm going to start talking about these things. And one of the questions was, how do you find dead spots in your aquarium? And honestly, really the only way that you're going to be able to find the dead spots in your tank is just visually. You're going to be able to look at the tank, look around behind the rocks from the sides and stuff like that, and look for places where detritus and buildup and things are kind of swirling around behind the rocks, and just watch them for a few minutes. And they'll swirl around back there. And if they don't get floofed up into the water column so that they can be taken out, if they just kind of sit in that zone, then that's an indicator that you have a dead spot right there. So you might want to adjust your flow or maybe move your rocks just a little bit or something to try to see if you can get that spot without like floofing it with your hand. Move your pumps or whatever. Let me move this just a little bit. It's making me lean to the right. There we go. Can you say hi, Vsauce? What's up, man? But so anyway, that's one of the best ways that you can do that. You're just gonna have to look at the tank, see where that stuff is being trapped at, and adjust your flow until those spots kind of floof up and go away. That's really the only way to do it. There's not any other method that I know of other than just a visual inspection of the tank and changing flow patterns and stuff like that. Now, flow in your aquarium is very important. It's one of the most important things that we have to get right with our tanks. Unfortunately, it's a little bit like an art form almost. You know, it's one of those things that you just have to play with. You know, usually it works better if you have more than one type of flow device. Like in this tank, I've got a FX 350 here, and I've got another FX 350 on this end, and I have 4 return outlets on this tank. So I've got a lot of flow into the tank from a bunch of different places, and it randomizes the flow patterns in the tank. Of course, my FX 350s, they're on a hydros system as well, a wave engine, so I can adjust, you know, the power and when they're on and when they're off and how they alternate and interact with each other. And the goal is to create flow patterns that change. So you don't want, I'm going to make a whole video on this, but What you don't want is a flow pattern that's exactly the same like this all the time, right? So if you just have one pump in the corner or one return outlet in your little all-in-one tank or something like that, and it's always flowing the same direction, that's not what we want. We want that flow to get interrupted and floofed and changed and moved about. And the best way to do that is with multiple smaller wave makers rather than just like one big continuous state flow pump. So that's what I would say about finding dead spots in your tank. It's just something that you have to look for and then figure out how to move your flow around so that you can get rid of them. So I hope that helps answer that question. I'll take one of the other questions down in the comments. How can I take down silicate without affecting phosphate? So you really are going to have to find the source of where the silicates are coming from. There's really not like a silicate filter that we can put on the aquarium that's going to filter those silicates out, because silicates are a living organism. They are a thing, you know, like a diatom or a dinoflagellate or whatever. They're an organism with little cilia coming off of them. That's why they're called silicates. And so usually it comes in on either the water that you're putting in the tank, wherever you're getting that water from, or it comes in on the food that you're adding to the tank, or some sort of additive that you're putting into the aquarium. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend, and most people who've been doing this a long time recommend, using an RODI filter on your aquarium to make your freshwater that you're going to use for the aquarium, is because a properly set up RODI is going to take all of those silicates out of that water. Using tap water, sometimes even getting distilled water still may have some if it wasn't done to a high enough quality, and using water from fish stores and things like that, very common ways that you end up with silicates in your tank. And then if you have an excess of silicates, you run the risk of having an excess of diatoms because they eat the silicates. So you end up with a brown tank. You end up with a diatom bloom and tank turns brown, which is normal during the ugly phase right after the nitrogen cycle. But later in the tank's life, if you see that show up, it's an indicator that you have silicates going up in your aquarium, and you might want to do something about that. Unfortunately, once they're in there, there's not a lot we can do to get rid of them other than induce a diatom bloom and add, cleaners and add copepods. All four main different types of copepods. You can put those in there, and some phytoplankton too. So building a diverse microbiome in the tank is one of the important things that you can do to take care of the silicates and make sure they stay gone. So Cookie Dough says, bad tank, 350. No, this is a 210 behind me. I just finished the Aquascape the other day. Big 5-foot long bonsai Aquascape. The whole system volume is over 300 gallons. My sump is in the room on the other side of that wall there. And I've got a 40 breeder that's connected to it. It's turned off right now because that's my frag tank while I reset this. Yeah, that's what the tank has going on. Oh, hang on, I hit a button. So let's see who else we got here. Mark is in. Michelle is in. Oh, that's who I was just talking to. Cookie Dough. That's very cool. Aussie Reefer, what's up, my friend? Cookie Dough says, if it doesn't come out 0 for ppm on my RODI, not using the water in time for a filter change. Yep, me too. I order filters when I notice that it hits 1, I go ahead and order filter swaps. At this point, I'm replacing my own deionization resin, so I just order the resin and I repack the container, which is an option. I actually had to add something to my RODI unit called a silica buster, and it's a specific type of deionizing resin that it takes out silicates specifically. Some people have to. My tap water here is about 400 TDS, so it's very high in silicates, and I had to do that to get rid of them. Jay's Motorcycle, what's going on? Happy to see you here. Thank you so much for joining the stream. And if you guys are new here, if you don't know me, my name is Logan. I run Reef Rookies. It's a social media brand where I teach people how to do saltwater aquarium stuff. I'm here on YouTube. I'm on the Clock app. We have a Book of Faces group as well, a Discord chat, all those places. And you can find those just by searching Reef Rookies with Logan in all of those places, and you'll find me. So very cool that you're here. If you're not excuse me, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. Share this out anywhere that you want to share it to try to get as many people in here as we can, because this is what I do. So, all right, Mark says, I would say use one of the Seachem products like Phosbond, which will remove phosphate and silicates, then add phosphate via feeding or dosing. You could, I guess. I didn't know that Phosbond would remove silicates like that. It's been a long time since I really dug into Phosbond. I haven't used that one. Phosguard, Phosband, yeah, but the Phosbond one specifically, I haven't looked at that one in quite a while. So, Cookie Dough says, sick Aquascape. Thank you so much. Check out the Aquascape in my little 22 gallon over here. It's a floating style Aquascape. This is a sea Cardinal. It is a new all-in-one aquarium that has just been introduced to the market this year. And it comes with the tank, a light, a skimmer, a heater, tank light, skimmer, heater, power strip, net lid, and all of that for one price. You order the one thing, you get all of those things. You can order a stand with it as well. And I 3D print some parts for the back, a filter media basket, a filter media basket holder, and a media rack that you can put things in and stuff like that. Those are all available on the Sea Cardinal website, www.seacardinal.com. They are a brand partner, so I figured I'd shout them out a little bit. Ty Robertson says, can you go over different ways the tanks can crash? Yeah, I actually have that on my list. I think you commented that in the group, so it's on my list of things to talk about. Thomas made it in. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm glad to have you here with us. George says, how's it going tonight? Do you have any livestock in the large tank? No. This tank was recently reset. It is currently going through a fishless nitrogen cycle. I didn't test it today, so I don't know exactly where it's at. But let's see, 2 days ago, I still had 1.5 ppm ammonia. I didn't have any nitrites because of the stuff that I'm using to cycle it with. It basically just skips nitrites and goes straight to nitrates. But I do have some nitrates showing up. So probably another week, maybe 2 at the most, and I'll start restocking the 210 again. So, but nothing in it right now. I had to shut it down because I had some sort of wild algae that I just could not get rid of. I spent 2 years working on that crap, trying to get rid of it, and I couldn't get rid of it. It's the only time in the history of me having reef tanks in 20-something years that I have never been able to get rid of an algae from a tank, and that was just crazy. So let's see here. Cigar Music says, looking to add more fish to my tank and need to set up a QT again. Can I use Turbo Start and place the new fish in the QT, or do I need to cycle it? So QT tanks, there's 2 ways of looking at this, right? And this is a great topic. Quarantine tanks can either be observation or medication tanks, right? So if you're setting up just an observation QT, that can be cycled. You can use some media from your existing tank, some like ceramic media in a bag or something like that. You can put it in that tank. You could use something like Turbo Start. You could cycle that quarantine tank if you're only going to be observing the fish, just to make sure that they're healthy and happy and stuff like that. Excuse me, if you're going to be medicating the tank, I don't recommend that you do that, because those medias or the rock or the sand or whatever it is that you put in the tank to do that cycling process absorbs a lot of the medicine. You will fight yourself trying to get copper to the proper level in the quarantine tank if you have rocks in there that are sucking that copper up. Sometimes you may not even be able to get it to the therapeutic level. My glasses keep wanting to fall off my face. But so yeah, if it's just observation to make sure they're eating well, make sure they look good, all of that, then you can cycle that if you want. But if you're going to be medicating it, then I would not cycle that tank. So let's take another couple of questions, and we're going to go back to the questions from the group. Vargas says, have you ever tried or had luck with adding 2 clownfish pairs? I avoid that unless all of those clownfish came from the same clutch of babies. If you know somebody who breeds, or if your fish store ordered a bunch of clownfish in and they all came from the same batch and they were born and hatched together and have been living together, then it's usually okay. But if you have a situation like I do, I have 2 black storm clowns that are going to go back in this 210. They are well established. They're a mated pair. I wouldn't add another pair of clownfish in with them, even in the 210, just on the off chance that there is some aggression that happens. This is a huge tank to try to catch fish out of. And so I don't like putting my animals into a situation where even potential aggression could exist. If you think of it like this, if you have a house and you've got 3, dogs and they all get along together, but those dogs don't like other dogs, you wouldn't want to bring a new dog into that environment. It's kind of the same way, especially with clownfish. But it also depends on the species. Maroon clowns, I would absolutely not try it with those. Wild caught clowns, I would not try it with those. Aquacultured clowns, probably I would give it a shot, but I still don't like to do it, just personally. All right, so let's see what else we have here. Jay's asked a question. Yeah, we do. We fired the generator up yesterday just to make sure it was all good and everything was lubricated and working like it was supposed to. But I don't know, the storm kind of came and went, but they're saying it's going to loop back around maybe and come back. I don't know. If the power goes out, we'll kick the generator on. So let's see if we could get caught up on the comments right quick. Oh, yeah, we can. There's only a few of them. Let's see. Jamal says, you were so correct about those strips. Back to Amazon Total Waste. Strips lied. Yep. No ammonia. 40 nitrates, 5 nitrites. Okay. Real test kit, 2 ppm ammonia, 20 ppm nitrates, and 2 ppm nitrites. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It's been proven, anecdotally proven anyway, time and time again, that those strips are just inaccurate. They're not good for us. They're good for swimming pools and some freshwater tanks. But if I was keeping, higher end freshwater fish, I wouldn't even use them for that. API works great for freshwater. Doesn't work that great for saltwater. But strips are pretty much like the worst thing that we can try to use for a saltwater tank. So yeah. JC says, hey Logan, I've been stressing about getting a battery backup. Have you heard of the Reef box 300 amp hour battery is what I've been thinking about getting. If you're going to go with a battery backup, I would go with a lot bigger one than a 300 amp hour. Depending on the size of your tank, of course, you can reverse engineer with those numbers how long that battery backup will run your tank. You have to pull the amp draw. This would be a good video. You have to pull the amp draw, or at least look it up so you can get a good idea of how much your heaters and your flow pumps and your lights and all that draw at their maximum amount of power. Then you add all that up together, and if let's just say for easy math, your aquarium draws 100 amps, right, when it's running. A 300 amp hour battery is only going to give you 3 hours of runtime. So I know those numbers are probably all off. So if there's an electrical engineer in here right now, don't come for me. I just made those numbers up, but you get the idea. So you can look at the specs of your stuff, or you can even get a tool that clamps around the cable and while the device is on, and it will tell you how many amps it's drawing. And so you can do that on each one of your devices and make some notes and stuff. And then you can add all that stuff up and find out how big of a battery that you need, 1,500 amp hours or something like that. But really, if you can, a generator is the much better way to go. But if you have to go with a battery backup, you can't do a generator. There's a bunch of them out there. I had an EcoFlow for a while. Jackery makes some pretty good ones. There was another one that I'm trying to remember the name of, but I can't recall the name of it right now. But they're all on Amazon. You can get those. Some of them come with solar panels. I had one that had a big 6-foot solar panel that opened up, and I was able to use that during a storm to run my tanks. This tank, as a matter of fact, and it did the job. So that was good. Thomas says, will a tidal wave 55 turn over my 40 breeder with 2 1350 circulating fans, or do I need to go bigger? Tidal, that would be fine. A tidal 55, it's called a 55 because it's rated for up to a 55-gallon tank. So you don't want to think of that thing as part of your total flow in the tank. It's going to add a little bit of flow, but it's not going to give you a large increase in the amount of flow that's going to come from that device. So you want to get your flow numbers from, from everything else, your circulation pumps and stuff like that. But as far as, so basically what I'm getting at is you want to think of that device as just a filter mechanism. It's going to mechanically remove stuff from the water. And if you put some media in it or stuff, something like that, it'll do a little bit of biological filtration as well. But I wouldn't count on that particular thing to be giving you a whole lot of flow. Now, they do dump a good amount of water back in the tank, but it's not something that I would use to try to make sure that the tank has enough water movement and water flow. I would simply just use it as a mechanical filter is all. All right, let's keep going. Wow, there's a lot more comments, guys, so we're going to get to those as soon as I can. I don't want to miss anybody, so bear with me. I started my first aquarium with live rock. Good deal. With all the coming along with it. The next time I will not go that way unless you can recommend ways to avoid this. So I think what you're talking about is all the like hitchhikers and stuff that come along with the live rock. Live rock is the best way to go. It's going to add as a matter of fact, so this we'll go ahead and talk about this right quick. Biome diversification for proper beginnings. That was one of the questions from my Facebook group. So we'll talk about that. We're going to get to the tank crash one in just a minute as well. So live rock is one of the best ways you can add bacterial and biome diversity to your aquarium when you start it up. Haven't done it to this one yet. But as soon as the weather calms down a little bit, I'm ordering some live rock from Tampa Bay Saltwater. It's been out in the Atlantic Ocean for months and months. It has sponges and macroalgae and all this kind of stuff all over it, right? One thing that you can do to try to clear hitchhikers out and stuff like that is build you a little table, right, that you can use with a bucket and a pump, and you can run salt water over it, right? But you can make that salt water at a hyposalinity, so it's down at like 1.015, something like that. And you can do that. Sometimes that'll make the critters like run out of the rock and stuff. But I mean, you don't have to go with live rock. You could start no, this is live. This is all dead base rock. That's why it's white like that. So you can get good, clean live rock if you want, or you can just build the bacterial biome in the tank in other ways. Aquaforest makes a product called Life Source. It's literally mud that's sucked up from the ocean floor in Fiji, and then they bag it and then they sell it. And you can get it to your house. It's a powdered form. They dehydrate it, but all of the good stuff is still in there, right? At least I think it's powder. It might be a slurry. I don't remember. But people have found like fish parts in it and the occasional piece of trash. And sometimes there's magnetic stuff in there. So you want to make sure you stir around the magnet in it to try to get that magnetic stuff out. But that's a good one. There are other ones. You could go with bottled bacteria and stuff. You could, Dr. Tim's Eco Balance is a good one. Protobio is another one. Tropic Marin makes one called NP Bacto something. And it's hard to remember all the names of all the products. But yeah, so you're either going to have to go with a live rock situation, or you're going to have to go with getting that diversity from somewhere else, which is going to be bottles and bags, stuff like that. But as you put corals into the tank, that's going to bring in a little bit of diversity as well. Fish too, but not nearly as much, just a little bit of bacterial diversity. And adding copepods from different people, different sources is another good way to do that. Get them from different places. But yeah, I mean, I prefer using live rock to seed the tank, and that's what I'm going to be doing with mine. Another thing just came to mind that you can do. If you look right over here, right there, I've got a 5-gallon little quarantine system set up right there. You could put that live rock in a quarantine tank, and you could just wait, and see what comes out of it. And you could set meat traps and stuff like that for worms and crabs where they crawl in to get a piece of shrimp or whatever and they can't get back out. That's an option. Just some stuff off the top of my head. All right, let's see. What is your view on the AI axis pumps? Trying to figure out if I want the 2040. I actually haven't looked into those yet. I think those are pretty new to the market, and it's not something that I've dug into deep. Again, there's so many products to look at, and like I don't have a fish store or anything like that, so I only really get hands-on with the stuff that I buy. I don't have big companies like AI sponsoring me or anything like that. So unfortunately, I don't have an opinion on that pump for you, but I would imagine that there are people in my Facebook group who do. So if you want to jump in there and make a post about that, that'd be awesome. The Reef box is a switch, and I can put any kind of battery with it. Oh, okay. That's cool. Marine Josh says, how do you get your beard looking so good? Luck, because I literally don't do anything. This is as natural as it gets. I trim it, and that's about it. I don't do anything special. No beard oils and none of that stuff. I guess I got lucky. Mark says, do you or have you grown your own phyto and copepods? I have done it before. Let's see. Oh, he was answering somebody else. I have done it before. I have a video on this channel, as a matter of fact, on how you can get started growing your own phytoplankton. I tried to use LED strip lights and wrap them around the outside of the glass jar that I was using to grow the phyto, and it worked. But even one drop of salt water makes those lights malfunction. So I'm going to end up switching up how I do that. I'm going to make a more advanced video later. That was just sort of a very beginner type video, like just how to start and the basic things that you need. So, but yeah, I have. Growing copepods is a little harder for me. It takes a lot more dedication. But it's definitely doable, and it's doable in much the same way that you would grow phyto. It's just that you run the phytoplankton concentration much lower in the container, and you put the pods in there, and you let the pods grow, and then you can filter them out. You can get like I think it's a 52 micron filter. I don't remember the number, but you can get a filter and you pour your water through there. It catches the copepods. You can dump them in another container or into the tank or whatever, and then you start all over again. But yeah, I have done it. I wish I could make these chats bigger. So let's see. Seth says, when I quarantine my fish, how high should I let the ammonia get before doing a water change? Mark says no higher than 0.25. Yep, I agree with that. Steve has an Axis 20 and some 40s. Cool. Steve, what do you think about them? Oh, you answered. Okay, good. I'm getting there. Hang on. How would you keep a Pico tank stable and balanced? I've set up a 10-gallon that's doing great with corals, but recently set up a 2.6 gallon nano and is now getting diatoms. What's mandatory for stability? Leave the damn thing alone. And I'm not kidding. Let me look. If I turn this around, that wine glass right there, that 2-foot tall wine glass tank is, it's about 2.5 gallons or so. I literally don't touch that thing. It has corals growing in it. It's loaded down with pods. There's some bristle worms in there. The more we jack with them, the more upset they get. Now, the one main point that I would make is keep your bio load very low. The only thing in that wine glass tank is a couple of snails, a couple of hermits, a couple of corals, and 2 harlequin shrimp. So they only eat starfish. So they don't make a big mess in the tank, right? The nitrates in that tank are about 25. It's perfectly fine. The phosphates are almost undetectable. It's not doing anything weird. The PAR is a little low on it. It's only about 125 PAR at the sand bed. But people, I think the place where people get messed up with Pico tanks is they try to over control them. They jack with them too much. Now, I will say this. It took that tank 6 or 8 months to find its groove. But in that time, I didn't do anything with it. I just let it run. I topped off the salt water. I didn't try to feed it. Sorry, I'm moving notifications. I didn't try to feed it. I didn't do anything crazy like that, right? I'm letting that tank go slow. Now, if you set up a Pico tank and you try to cram it full of corals, you try to put 2 or 3 fish in there, a shrimp and some all this and that and the other stuff, it's going to be more difficult. The main thing in that situation is water changes as long as your nutrients are in line, right? As long as you have nitrates that are above like 3 or 4, you're okay to do those 10% water changes every week. I mean, 10% of 3 is only 0.3, right? So you're not really moving the nitrates all that much. So I would, is that right? 10% of 3.3? Don't do math on camera, especially after dinner. So anyway, the main takeaway that I would give you for a Pico tank is go very slow and let it find its own groove. If the pH wants to be at 7.8, let it be at 7.8. Don't try to make it 8.3. You know, if the alkalinity wants to run at 8.1, let it. You know, don't try to make it 10. As long as the numbers are within the ranges that we consider good, don't try to jack with it. Just leave it alone. So that's what I would say about that. Let's move on to something else. I don't want the stream to be all about one thing. So that's a very good question, though. I should do a video or maybe even a series on Pico tanks. That would be a good idea. Steve Charles says go with the Axis 40. Much more power and can run at 100%. Was disappointed with the 20. But working okay for a 5-gallon. Well, thank you for that information, Steve. I appreciate you sharing that with the group. Sean says, what's up, man? Hey, so my first calamity was my pump died. I ordered the Mighty Jet Medium for my 40 cube. Hopefully it will suffice. I'll keep extras on hand not to go through that again. Yeah, keeping extras, that's always a good idea. You know, extra pumps, extra light, extra heater for sure. You know, anything that you can have when you upgrade something, don't get rid of that old thing. Put it in a box, keep it in a closet. You never know when you're going to need it again. Brent says, what are your thoughts on PNS bacteria's benefit, the purple non-sulfur bacteria? I'm sure that it's beneficial, but do you think it's overhyped? I've been dosing it, and it seems to be making a difference, but who knows? I think that it has a specific situation where a person is going to see like a big benefit, and that's in a bacterially limited system. Right? If you have a system that is not bacterially diverse, you're not getting the conversion into the nutrients that you want. You got junk building up on the rocks, you know, all the time, stuff like that. In that case, it's good stuff. You can put too much stuff like that into a tank and create a situation where you drive the nutrients all the way down to nothing. I've done that, and it's not a good time trying to overcome that. Because as you're adding things to try to overcome it, they're consuming it, their population is exploding, stuff like that. When I was trying to fix this tank, when it had the big, huge algae bloom, right, I used Microbe Lift Special Blend, and that has a purple non-sulfur bacteria in it. It's got some other stuff too, but it has one of those species that do that. And I put it in the tank, it did the thing, nutrients came down, kept coming down, kept coming down, kept coming down all the way to 0. And then we ended up with all kinds of other problems. So just be careful, you know, dose it as recommended. But I think it's a good product, and a lot of people are making it now. It's another one of those things that you can grow at home, like phyto or copepods. It's much harder, but you can. And so I think it definitely has a place, and I need to do more research on it. It's fairly new. It's really only popped up really a lot in like the last year or so in the hobby. It was around before that, but not so much. So, wow, there are so many comments. Sheesh. All right, let me see if I can get caught up a little bit. Tank has a bacterial bloom after cleaning my filter. Not sure if that's the reason. No dead fish. What's the best way to deal with that? My fish have been hiding during the day and at nights. Make sure you increase oxygenation. That's number one. That bacteria is going to start consuming that oxygen, and if you don't offset that in some way, you could end up with a situation where the tank is oxygen starved. Other than that, turn the lights off for 3 days, maximum 3 days if you have corals. If you don't have corals, you can go a day or two longer than that, and that should take care of it. But if it doesn't, then you might have to get a UV sterilizer. There's other ways that may or may not help. You can add beneficial bacteria, but it's usually not a good idea. I see people recommend that all the time. And it's usually not a good idea to put more bacteria into a tank that's already got a bacteria problem. So I usually just kill the lights for a couple of days and then it's gone. So try that out. Hope that helps. Sean says, ready to know what you've been working on. Can't say yet. But it has been getting worked on it. 6B. Yeah, I don't even know what that means, Reefer. Let's see what we got here. So many negative reviews. I was looking at, okay, you guys are having a little conversation there. That's cool. I'm trying to get caught up. Everyone stresses water changes on Pico tanks. Yeah, that's true, because if the nutrients are where they should be, then doing those water changes replenishes a little bit of your trace elements. It takes out a little bit of the nutrients that are no good, as well as some of the pollution and crap that we don't want. You can stir them up, pull the detritus out. It's all very good to do with a Pico tank, you know. It's just you have to make sure the nutrients are in line. If your nitrates are at like 1, I wouldn't recommend doing a water change at that time. I would wait for them to come up a little bit more. But yeah, it is a good thing for sure. Where do you get the starfish to feed the shrimps? So I feed them chocolate chip starfish, and most fish stores carry them. Although the little 5-gallon that I have set up over there, that's like a QT setup, I'm going to start growing Astorina, Aquila nostra starfish in there to feed the shrimps with. But the chocolate chip stars, the right way to do it is to have anywhere from 6 to 10 chocolate chip starfish in a tank on their own, because they'll eat corals in your sump, somewhere like that. Once a week, you literally use a pair of like kitchen scissors or bone cutters and you snip a leg off. You feed that to the harlequin shrimps, and then you don't do that to that starfish again until you've been around to all of the other ones. And I know it sounds a little barbaric and whatnot, but it's the only thing those shrimp eat, and you can't get like freeze-dried starfish. So I have them because I ended up with blue-green Aquila nostra in this tank before I tore it down. So I had to get the harlequin shrimp to get all of those out of there. I had hundreds of them. I was picking them out by the dozens like every day, and it just wasn't enough. So I bought them, and now I have to keep them alive. So that's why I'm doing that. Wallbang says, how often do you change water? I don't. In that wine glass, and I have another aquarium. It's a candy jar tank right on the other side of the wall in front of me here. It's about this big. It's about 2.5 gallons. I don't do water changes. My nutrients are not too high. They're a little elevated, but they're not too high. And so I'm not doing water changes. But those tanks don't get fed. All they have is light going into them. There's no fish, nothing in there that really needs to be fed aside from a few snails and hermits, and they just graze on whatever little bit grows in there. Now, I'm not saying that that's absolutely the way to do it. If you have a couple of fish, or if you are feeding your corals, or if you're doing any of those things, track your nutrients. And if they get to a point where you're like, all right, that's too high, I want to bring that down, then yeah, do a water change. No problem. Let's see. Seth says, I have a fleece roller and a protein scammer. Yeah, skimmer. And a refugium that I can set up. That I can set up if I put those in a 40-gallon tank. How many fish can I keep in it? That's a $1 million question, right? How many fish can you keep in X size tank? And really, it depends. There's a lot of factors. What fish are we talking about? If you're talking about dwarf, fuzzy or Fu Manchu lionfish, I would say probably only 2 or 3. But if you're talking about firefish and damsels and a couple of clowns and maybe a flasher wrasse and a possum wrasse and things like this, you could have 20 or 30 fish in that tank. It comes down to individual species. If you put maroon clownfish in there, you're probably not going to be able to put anything else in there with them, because they're going to kill everything. But so it really comes down to individual species. The whole golden rule about 1 inch per gallon or something, it's a good guideline, if you're going to have that many fish in there. But in a 40, my 40 is overstocked right now. I've got a sailfin tang, a foxface, and all my other fish that came out of the 210 in my 40, the ones that made it anyway. So it's overstocked for sure. But I would say anywhere from probably a generic figure, probably somewhere around a dozen. I don't like to overstock my tanks really heavily. I know some people do. They like that look, but I just don't like to. So I would say probably around a dozen fish, varying in size, and different species that, some are swimmers, some are scooters just on the sand, like a diamond goby. So yeah, it's just use your best judgment. Don't try not to overstock it. So Lucas says, yep, my 12-gallon almost crashed because I kept playing with it. Yep, phosphate is 0.09, good. Nitrate 13. Haven't done a water change in 2 months. Perfect. Let it run. If it's not doing anything stupid, let it run. That is a key that you can take away to all of your saltwater aquariums. If they're not doing anything stupid, if the tank looks good, leave it alone. Let it run. Let it do its thing. You know, if the phosphate starts creeping up and goes above, you know, where you want it to be, usually for me, my indicator is 0.15. My frag tank right now is running at 0.5 phosphates and like 100 and something nitrates. And it's loving life. It's so weird. So anyway, main thing, my main takeaway right there is if the tank looks good, leave it alone. You know, but there are some times when you have to intervene and do stuff. I'm running caulk on a 65-gallon Alk at 10.5. Should I keep it there or try to tweak it? If it's stable at 10.5, leave it alone. Again, you know, if the tank looks good, if you have good coral growth, if you have growth tips, if you have SPS in there, which I'm assuming you do if you're running kalkwasser, you know, if the corals are growing, if the tank looks good, if the coloration's good, don't change anything. You know, keep doing what you're doing. But when I say leave it alone, let me let me clarify myself. When I say leave it alone, what I mean is don't make any changes. Keep doing what you've been doing. Keep your routine going because it's working. So don't make any drastic or sudden changes, you know. I think 10.5 is probably a good spot. The alkalinity in my frag tank is at 15.3 right now. It's the highest alkalinity I have ever had. And the growth on my corals is nuts. But they probably don't have super strong skeletons because they're growing so fast. So they're probably very brittle. I don't want my alkalinity that high. And I'm going to be fixing that when I move things to the other tanks and places where they need to go. But yeah, it's high. It's way up there. Mark says, I find if you want a lot of livestock, you're better off getting a larger tank than overstocking a small one. Absolutely. Corals looking good. What corals? I don't have any corals. They're in the frag tank, and they are looking good. I'm very pleased with how things are going over there. We might go try to take a look at it. I don't know, the light might be going off. Excuse me. Sean's looking at getting a 40 breeder. I had made mention in the Facebook group. You hinted around about some stuff. Can you reveal anything yet? If not, I understand. What could I say? Well, you know, he made a poll asking people what their preferred next tank would be. So the company that I'm working with, Cardinal, Elliot is considering bringing 2 new tanks into that lineup. So this is the Cardinal for those of y'all who don't know. It's a 22-gallon all-in-one. It comes with a light and a skimmer and a heater and a circulation pump, a return pump, like all that stuff, right? He's considering adding 2 more size tanks. One's going to be a Pico, and then like a little one, like a 2.5-gallon. And the other one is going to be bigger than a 22-gallon. I don't think he has settled on what size it's going to be yet. So that's why I can't really say what it is, because honestly, I don't know. Oh, my wife said hi. Hi, wife. So yeah, that's all I really know, Sean. Honestly, I don't know what he's decided yet. We haven't talked in the last couple of days about that. So yeah. Hey, if you guys are new here, if you're enjoying the conversation, why not hit that subscribe button? That way you catch my videos and it helps me help you out. It keeps me going. I make a little money. You know, I can keep doing this because I won't have to go back to a 9-to-5 after my work comp thing is all over with. So yeah. So we have a question here that says, help to raise pH. Get rid of the CO2 any way that you can. The most common way to do that is to add a skimmer, or if you're already running a skimmer, you can put a CO2 scrubber on your skimmer, but you have to get rid of the CO2. If the room stays closed up all the time, open the room up, let more fresh air into the room, put fans on the tank that blow fresh air across the top of the tank. You want to get that CO2 out of there. That's what causes low pH. I did a video on this actually pretty recently. I don't remember the title of the video, but if you look back in my feed, it's 2 or 3 or 4 videos back, you'll find one talking about this specific thing. And yeah, you got to get rid of the CO2. That's what's causing it. So Mark says, if the parameters are holding stable, should be okay to leave it. Agree. Reefer Fish says, turn off your skimmer. 4 hours increases population by 10x. Population of what? Did I miss something? What are we turning the skimmer off for? I'm going to get back to that comment in a minute. Canister filter or sump? Sump for me. That's the way I want to go. I just prefer them. I'm able to put more of my equipment out of the main display down in there. Anthony, what's going on, man? Happy to help. So glad that you're a part of the community. Wait a minute. $1.95 has popped up top. Did somebody do a thing? I don't know. We'll get there in a minute. Okay. So let's go find some questions. Just seems high. However, corals. Yeah, I agree. Water changes equal ionic balance. Well, that's true, but that's not nearly as big of a problem as people make it the mountain that it is. True, the tank has to be in balance. And water changes do help with that. Yes, I agree. When is a good time to start adding an anemone on a new tank? So that really depends on your skill level as a reef keeper. I have bubble tip anemones right down here with this Alardi clownfish in this tank, and it's only 2 months old. But I know how to manage my parameters. If something gets out of whack, I know what to do to take care of it, right? Yo, John, happy to see you here, my man. Thank you so much for joining us. Generally speaking, I would say to let the tank mature about 6 months. I got to stand up for a minute, you guys. Move around a little bit. Let's move this up. Yeah, generally speaking, I would say let the tank mature for, 6 to 8 months before you start introducing anemones to it. That's sort of just a guideline. The tank needs to be stable. It doesn't have to be mature. It doesn't have to be old. It doesn't have to, be anything else other than stable. Now, with maturity and age comes stability, but that's the thing that people like to say is that the tank needs to be mature. It doesn't need to be mature. You can put an anemone in a tank with brand new salt water. As long as that salt water is stable, that nem will be happy. Since my tank is new, I'm just running filter floss, ceramic ring bag, and a skimmer. When is it time? When it's time, is there an advantage to ChemiPure versus regular carbon bags? So I don't really run a lot of media filtration like that, but it's definitely beneficial if you're trying to control your nutrients. Here's what I would say about that. Don't add anything to the tank without having a reason to put it in there. So let's just say your phosphates and your nitrates are a little bit elevated, right? And you want to put something in there to bring them down. It's a small tank like my 22-gallon. I don't have room to run reactors and all of that stuff. You could run something like ChemiPure. Is it Elite or Blue? Elite has GFO, I think, and Blue has Purigen, I think. At any rate, you could add something like that to the tank to help bring the nitrates and the phosphates down a little bit. But the reason that you're putting it in there is because you want it to help control those parameters. I wouldn't add it if you're not trying to do that. So in activated carbon is the same way, unless you have leather corals. If you have leathers in your tank, they have a toxin in them that they will release to suppress coral growth around them. That's why I don't keep toadstools. In that case, then yeah, you want to run activated carbon all the time. But if not, if you don't have that situation, it's not something that you have to run constantly, 24/7. So what I would say is always make sure you know what the reason is that you're going to be adding something to the tank. So it's not just tank's 8 months old, I need to put ChemiPure in there. That's not how that works. So just always know your reason. And usually situations that are going to require something like ChemiPure or carbon, well, not carbon, let me back that up. ChemiPure or like GFO to reduce phosphates or something like that. Most of the time, they're not emergencies. So it's not something you have to do right now today. You have a few days to research it and figure out what you need to do. The reason that I backed off on activated carbon is because that is one that we use in emergency situations. Pallies release their toxins, leathers release their toxins. You got chemical warfare going on between, corals or something like that. Then we dump that, put that stuff in there for sure. Let's see. Reefer was talking to Jason and said, as long as your lights are up to par, anemones are easy. I would kind of agree with that. Anthony says, yo, the RL90s you recommended last night should be here Saturday. Excellent. That's what I have on this tank. If I pop the lid open, I'm running 4 Pop Bloom RL90s in this tank. I love these lights. And they recently released the RL 180, which is two 90s side by side into one fixture. It looks really cool. Leonardo, cannot get nitrates over 0. PO4 at 0.1 5-month-old tank. Do I dose? At 5 months, I would say, yeah, you could probably go ahead and start dosing a little bit of nitrates. Definitely don't add any more phosphates. At 0.1, you know, you're out of balance right now. So your nitrates are really low and your phosphates are, we'll call it really high. It's 0.1 is arguably okay, but yours are out of balance, right? You need to bring them the other way where nitrates are up at, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20, and your phosphates are at that 0.1 number. So yeah, at this point, you could start dosing something like neonitro is one of the best. It's kind of weak, so it takes a little while to build that nitrate up. You could, well, you say you can't get them over 0, so you've probably tried the overfeeding things and stuff like that. If I had to guess, this tank is probably going to do the same thing because of the dead base rock. It absorbs nitrates and phosphates and stuff over time. Carib Sea Life Rock, I hate that name. I'm going to make a whole video about that. That rock is, it's not real. It's man-made concrete rock. And it absorbs nitrates and phosphates like crazy for the first couple of months until it becomes saturated. And then you'll see a nitrate, you know, start going up in the tank. But yeah, at 5 months in, if you don't have any nitrates, I would say you could start adding some, yeah. Is a yellow watchman goby, citrus goby, pistol shrimp? Okay, wait a minute. Yellow watchman goby, citrus goby, pistol shrimp, hawkfish, 6-line wrasse, 3 chromies, 2 clownfish, 2 firefish, too much for a 40. So that one's on the bottom. That one's kind of on the bottom. The pistol shrimp don't matter. Hawkfish are cool. The 6-line's going to be a jerk. I would recommend going with an 8-line wrasse over a 6-line wrasse. They look almost the same. They do the same job, but 8-line wrasses are a lot nicer. 3 chromies, 2 clownfish. Nah, you'll be good with that stock list. I would just change the 6-line to an 8-line. Really, that's the only change I would make. The chromies, they might fight, they might not. I had 2 that got along perfectly fine in this tank for a very long time. One jumped out, and then the other one smashed his head on something and had a big sore on his head between his eyes, and you could see his brain. So I went ahead and put him out of his misery. That was weird. Lindsay. Oh, hey, it's you. We'll see you next time. Okay, well, she's probably gone. Nitrates and phosphates are so arbitrary. Let it go. I don't know if I would say they're arbitrary, but yeah, for the most part, I think we concentrate way too much on nitrates and phosphates and trying to over control them. Yeah, fish are small. How's the out? Can running alkalinity on the low side discolor torches? You know, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I wouldn't think so, no, because, well, actually, I kind of do know the answer to that. I just had to think about it. No, it shouldn't discolor your torches at all, because most of the people that I know who grow torches just specifically, they run their alkalinity at like 8.5. You know, that's where it's at. It gives it a stronger skeleton because the growth is a little bit slower. But the people that I'm talking about, I'm thinking of 2 people right now. They're not coral vendors. They're hobbyists, you know. So they don't want things in their tank to outgrow their tank, and they don't want to have to frag them and stuff like that. I've talked to both of these people about this. They both want slow, strong, sturdy growth in their tank. So they run their alkalinity a little bit low. So I don't think that it's going to discolor your torches. It might help change the color, you know, different parameters, different trace element concentrations, things like that. Oh, the sea cardinal light's going out. The torches can definitely be a different color. Sean says, I've only been at it 3 months with saltwater. I do weekly 5-gallon water changes. Everything seems happy. Very good. Keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing. Marine Josh sent a super chat thing. Thank you very much for that. Lesson learned for the day. Stop playing with it. Yeah. Reefer is setting up an 80 lagoon. That's going to be a cool tank. Yeah, that's a nice size tank. I am new to hobbies. Can you tell me how much to determine how much to eat? Are you talking about the fish? If so, the general guideline is that you only feed enough that the fish can eat within 2 minutes. And if they're still eating after 2 minutes, you fed a little bit too much. My kid brought me something to eat. What is this? Huh? Cookie dough? Oh. Ooh, there's cinnamony. That's pretty good. I like it. Hey, Chance, how you doing? Hope you're having a good night. Unforgiven says, hi. I'm using Red Sea Black Bucket, the Coral Pro. Okay. I have 5 mid-sized corals, and I can't keep my alkalinity and magnesium up. Alkalinity is at 6.5, magnesium is 1250. I would not expect that only 5 coral. What size tank is it? See, Unforgiven. Make a post in my Facebook group. If you're not in it, it's called Reef Rookies with Logan. All you guys go over there and join that Facebook group, right? Unforgiven. I need you make a post with a picture of your tank and tag me. My name's Logan. If you type at Logan, it'll pop up. Because I don't think, unless it's a really small tank, I don't think that 5 corals are going to be causing you an alkalinity degradation problem unless they're big corals. So let's take a look at the tank and try to figure out what might be going on. Black Bucket is Coral Pro, so that stuff should be mixing at like 10 DKH. So I think there's something else going on there. It's hard for me to get a lot more specific than that in a live because I'm trying to move and answer questions. Let's go back to the page right quick. So we covered that. We covered that. Different ways a tank can crash. Oh my God, there's so many. Let me get some water before we tackle this one. All right. So tanks can crash whenever any of the parameters really, I'll follow this up with some more information, but whenever the parameters of the tank, the chemical balance of the tank gets so far out of whack that it just can't sustain anymore, there's all kinds of stuff that can happen. Calcium precipitation can happen. I made a video about this recently too, so you can go check that out. But there's a situation that can happen in your tank where the calcium literally starts to bind together and it can no longer remain in suspension, and it will come out of suspension and snow white calcium precipitate all over the aquarium. It can crash the tank. Failed heaters can crash the tank. Any equipment that fails really can crash it, because you could end up with a voltage spike that kills all your fish, and then the ammonia spikes and that kills your corals, and boom, tank crash. There's so many ways. We could have an entire stream just talking about different ways that a tank can crash. Now, most of them don't happen on the regular. You know, occasionally tank crashes do happen, but usually it's because something went into the tank, either inadvertently or maybe on purpose, but too much of a thing, and that caused the chemical composition of the tank to be upset. Dosing, swinging alkalinity too fast in one way or another way, that is one of the best ways to do it. So like the person was saying a minute ago, their alkalinity is 6.5. If they tried to take that to 10 in one go, it'd probably kill everything. It'd probably really piss off all the corals in the tank. And depending on what they are, it would kill some of them. So, and then it's a domino chain reaction after that. So yeah, so many things can cause a tank crash. Maybe that's a video too. I don't know. Julie says, my leathers are in with my anemones. Should I be running carbon? Yes, you should. You don't have to run a ton of it, but yeah, you should have some ROX, ROX, activated carbon in there in a media bag, just in case those leathers get pissed off. Sorry, it's been a little while since I've streamed, and it puts a strain on my voice. Just in case those leathers get pissed off and they start releasing that toxin that they have, you want that to be able to suck that up. Keyshawn says, I love my Pop Bloom RL90s. I like mine too. And I got an RL60 on my frag tank. And actually, I'm pretty shocked at how well that small light is doing on a 40 breeder. I've got one RL60 on that 40 breeder frag tank. And I mean, you can tell that it's a little bit weak. The coral coloration and stuff they're a little pale, but It's doing fine. It's growing corals. I've got blastos that are putting on 1 head a month. Do you recommend lights off for the first time cycling, or can I turn them on for a few hours each day? I'm on week 2 and just mounted the Hydra Edge on the 210. Cool. This is a 210 also. I recommend lights off for the cycle. It's just going to cause you less problems. You can turn them on for an hour or so if you want to just look at the tank and enjoy it. That's fine. Mine are on right now for the stream. I'm going to turn them off after. But generally speaking, yeah, I usually recommend lights off for the cycle. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of comments that I still have to get to. And we've been going an hour. My microphone probably only has about another 30 minutes in it before it dies, and I don't have a backup. I dropped my other one and it broke. So let's go a little bit quicker here. Lots of corals splitting. That's awesome. Very good. Let's see. Is it normal for large soft coral, leathers, mushrooms, GSP to consume large amounts of magnesium? Yep. I can't seem to keep mag above 1200. Yeah, hangs around 1080. Keep raising it. Yeah, at this point, Hydro, if you have that situation going on, you're probably going to have to start dosing magnesium on a regular. I would like to see you get your magnesium up to 1350 or even 14 or 1450. The amount of magnesium that you are going to have to dose to that aquarium to do that is going to be cost ineffective if you're going to use something like Brightwell magnesium or magnesium P or BRS magnesium, stuff like that. So what I would tell you to do, Google this, right? Randy Holmes Farley DIY magnesium recipe. You'll find information about it there. It's 2 parts. It's magnesium sulfate and magnesium chlorate. I apologize if you guys can hear background noise. I mean, we live here, you know, so you're good. Do what you do. Magnesium sulfate and magnesium chloride. Sorry, I think I misspoke a second ago. It's a DIY 2-part magnesium recipe. You can put that together. You mix it with RODI water, and it's much more cost effective to bring your magnesium up, and you can make it as strong as you want. So if you only want to dose, or if you want to bring it up 100 a day, you can mix it up and you can do that. Magnesium, you can move 100 ppm. 100 ppm a day with no problem. So I think that's the direction you need to go, Hydro. Reach out to me if you want some more information on that. We could talk about it. Epoxy versus coral glue for placing GSP on the back wall of a tank. So I know a lot of people want to do this, right? And epoxy is not going to get the job done for you. Unless you have, like me, like I have a plastic overflow, then you can stick it to that with super glue. What you really want to do is wait for the tank to have coralline algae growth on the back wall. So it gives the GSP something to grab a hold of, and then you can do that. But epoxy isn't ever going to stick to the glass like that. You're going to have to use super glue gel. The best way to do it is during a water change. Let the water come down in the tank, drain the water from the main display, dry a spot off on the back glass, and have the GSP on a frag plug, dry the frag plug, super glue gel on the dry glass, let that dry, and then fill the tank back up. Henry said, pop bloom for a 40 breeder. If it was going to be my main display, I would run 2 pop bloom RL90s. That way you can spread them apart a little bit and you can have, you know, a really nice amount of spread and par in the tank. I have a single RL60 on mine and it's doing the job, but it's not quite powerful enough. I would run 2 RL60s if you're going to do just softies, leathers, cabbages, you know, and some LPS, torch, Euphilia, you know, Fimbriophilia, that type stuff. Torches, hammers, frog spawns. If you want, you know, higher par requirement corals, then go with the 2 RL90s. If you want only just one fixture, then you could do the RL180. But there's a ton of other lights out there on the market that you could choose from too. Those are just the ones that I like. I have a partnership with that brand, so I recommend their products. I'm using them myself with excellent results. So yeah, I would do a pop bloom on a 40 for sure. I'm good. How closely do you maintain your ideal parameters? Well, I usually try to keep them very close to what I personally think is the sweet spot. Right now, I'm not even jacking with my 40 breeder. I'm just letting it do whatever it's going to do. And honestly, it's the best that some of those corals have ever looked because I'm freaking leaving it alone. You know, so when I set this tank back up, I do want Acropora in this tank. So I'm going to have to keep it very stable. Where I keep it might change. I don't know. When I say low, I mean 7. So alkalinity at 7, this goes back to talking about that. It might have an effect on coloration. I would really shoot for like 8, 8.5, but I don't think it's going to be too much. Do you dose supplements daily or weekly? I don't dose supplements at all. They're not needed in most cases. So this is a thing that has been perpetrated throughout the reef keeping hobby, and I'm going to have to just keep manually checking my microphone to making sure that, can I turn my head and see it? Nope. So adding supplements and amino acids and all this stuff to your tank is not something that most people need. Corals need fish poop and light. That's about it. Let me get a cough drop. Hang on. Back to the same thing with the throat again. I don't think that's ever going to change. I think it's just there now. So let me try to change how I'm speaking and lower my voice a little bit. Hopefully you guys can still hear me fine. That stuff's not really needed, right? That stuff is very useful in tanks that are nutrient limited. You know, your nitrates are down at like 1 or 2 and they won't come up because the coral's just sucking everything up. In that case, they might not be getting everything that they need. But that being said, in moderation, they don't hurt anything either. So if you want to give your corals a little snack, you want to put some AB plus or, you know, Reefroids or Benin pellets or something in there, that's fine. I would stick to weekly. I wouldn't do it every day. Many people do it every day and they don't have any problems with it. But in a newer tank with a low coral load, it's not needed at all. I see some companies selling invert packs for certain size gallon tanks. Does adding too many inverts at once cause an ammonia spike? So it can, in the sense that if you add more invertebrates than the tank can support, some of them are probably going to die off, and especially snails. If a couple of big turbo snails die off, you're going to have an ammonia spike. Hermit crabs, there's not a whole lot to them. You know, they're little bodies. There's not a lot of meat there to degrade. You know, but like snails, turbo snails, especially urchins and stuff like that, they might create an ammonia spike. So yes, my recommendation would be to go slow and steady with your additions of your cleaners in your tank. It's about 2 months in, so I've got like 5 turbo snails in the 22, a few other snails and a few other hermits, right? But I'm not packing the thing full of cleaners right off the rip right now. I'm kind of adding them a little bit as we go along, you know. So just that's what I would recommend do. I would recommend not going, 100% right out of the gate with it. Do you need to supplement live foods for a yellow cory wrasse? Constantly grazing and occasionally eats frozen. It won't hurt, but you don't have to, as long as he's eating and still looks good and everything. It's okay. But he would love some live food, some brine shrimp or something dumped in there, something that he's got to chase around. Those fish love it. Hey, Logan, Dave Bush here. My daughter has hijacked my YouTube. Cool. Looking into the process of building a sump. All right. Maybe a canopy. Maybe video in the future. DIY sumps and canopies. Man, there's so many ways that it could be done, but I'll try to see if I can come up with an idea, roll it around in my head. I crashed one tank, your 65 gallon. It was nitrate. Yep. Dinos almost crashed Lucas' tank from the dreaded 00. Not fun to recover from. Absolutely. Now, dinoflagellates, they can show up when there are nutrients in the tank, right? It's just that usually when we see them show up, we don't have any nutrients in the tank. The reason that they show up is not because the nutrients are low. It's because the nutrients being low have led to a situation where all of the good bacteria in the tank are going, I don't have any food, I'm going to go to sleep. So they do, and they go dormant, and then the dinoflagellates can outcompete them and take over, right? That's how that happens. It's not because, well, it is, okay, it is because the nutrients went low, but it's not directly correlated. It's an indirect correlation. So anyway, I just thought I would throw that in there. But yeah, dinoflagellates suck, and I hope I don't ever have them again. What copepods would you recommend once my tank cycles? Anthony, I would recommend that you go to if you're in the USA, podyourreef.com. Look at what he's got. There's usually 4 different types. I can't recall the scientific names. Tisbe, Tigriopus, Apocyclops, and one of them starts with an O that I can't remember. I keep wanting to say Ostreopsis, but that's not it. That's a dinoflagellate. But anyway, all 4 of them. Some are swimmers, some are benthic, which means they're crawlers. So just, you can never add too many or the wrong kind of copepods to a tank. You just can't do it. So any that you get are going to be fine. What is your preferred activated carbon? Any brand or the simple cheap used for freshwater tanks? I actually like the stuff from BRS. They have one. It's a ROX 0.8 something or whatever. It has virtually no dust in it, because the problem with activated carbon is the regular granulated stuff. It can grind against itself. It releases a ton of dust into the aquarium. We call these fines, F-I-N-E-S, and there has been at least some information put forth that those carbon dust fines are related to tangs and angelfishes getting head and lateral line erosion. It gets in their fins, under their scales and stuff, and it causes that problem for them. So that's one of the reasons that I don't recommend that we run it 24/7, especially if you got tangs and angels in your tank. That being said, as long as you go with the ROX kind, it's not a granulated type of carbon, and it doesn't do that as much with the fines and stuff. It's supposed to not have any, but I mean, it's always going to have a little bit. So that's what I would say about that. James says, how do you spot dead spots? Oh, you weren't here at the beginning of the stream, were you? So dead spots in the tank, it's a visual thing, right? Get in there, get behind your rocks, on the side of the tank, look down there, especially at night with a flashlight. You'll be able to see pockets of brown detritus that are, built up behind the rocks and stuff like that. It is almost impossible to have a tank that doesn't have at least a few dead spots. This tank isn't really going to have that many dead spots, because the only rock touching the glass, the sand, is this one and these ones. And these have like big passageways through them. So I'm really not going to have a whole lot of problems with dead spots in this tank. But most tanks with a stack of rocks definitely do. But yeah, it's just a visual thing. You had a second question. Can SPS come back to life like Favia? Usually not. Most of the time not. What happens with Favias and other corals similar to the Favia is they retract so far down that you can't see them, and there's a little bit of tissue left down there. And then over time, as the tank gets to be in a better situation, they start to reproduce or grow again and come back out. SPS really doesn't do that. If it whites out and goes completely just stark white like my shirt, it's gone. It's usually not going to come back after that. If you are familiar with them, do you have any opinion on products like Seachem Pristine or Dr. Tim's Waste Away? Yeah, I think that what do I want to say about this? They serve a purpose, but it's not something that I would suggest that you like run in the tank all the time. If you're having a problem with detritus buildup, which is what those things say that they are supposed to help with, right? Then you probably have a flow issue, and that's a problem that needs to be corrected, rather than a problem that you would want to try to put a Band-Aid solution on. That's kind of how I view those products. They're sort of Band-Aid solutions, right? If you get in your tank with a power head or something, or a blower, or even just a like a brush, and you just floof your rocks and stuff, if you see all kinds of crap coming out of your rocks, that's something that you need to be doing more often and letting that be filtered out of the tank. So that's what I would say about those. What are the fish stock plans for the 210? I love that question. Let's talk about that. So I already have a desert jenny. I think that's how you say that. Sailfin tang. I've got a spot foxface. I have 2 black storm clownfish, a possum wrasse, a purple firefish. I have a 4-striped damsel. And I feel like there's another fish. I had a chromie, but he kicked it. So that's what I have now. I also want to add a blonde naso tang. I want a powder brown tang. I want a blue eye coal tang. So those are my 3 bigger fish that are going to be going in there. A 1 a clown tang for a while, but I've changed my mind on that because I forgot how big they get. They get pretty huge. One of the things that I have wanted for a very long time is a mated pair of mandarin dragonettes, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do it in here. Even with the amount of rocks that I have in here, I don't think that I'm going to have enough rock surface for a mated pair of mandarins to maintain. But I have a 40-gallon on the other side of the wall that's going to be tied into the system, and it's going to be a macro algae display, so they might go in there. A 40-gallon full of macro algae with some rocks is going to have tons of surface area for copepods and stuff. So I would like those. I would also like probably 3 to 4 anthias. I haven't decided which ones I want to go with yet, but I want a school of anthias fish and maybe a hawkfish, like a long-nosed hawkfish. That's always a cool one. Definitely some fish for the sand because I have a lot of sand. I was even maybe considering doing a horseshoe crab, but they get too big even for a 210. I mean, them things get huge, and they knock everything over. And since I'm going to have acropora in this tank, I don't want it to be knocking things over. So that's some of the plans. Some of it's just going to depend on what I can get. Are the pop bloom strip lights any good? Presuming strips are the only option. Yes, Mark. I think you're talking about like the Hertz 75s. Those are great lights. I actually know several people who are running those lights. Look awesome. Great look on the tank. Very similar color patterns to the RL90s and stuff, which I have these on very white right now. There's no blue in this at the moment just for the stream. But yeah, they are very good. Mark says, look after your water and the water will look after your livestock. That is true. Can I put that on a shirt? No, seriously, it has been said by many people who've been doing this hobby for a very long time. We don't keep fish and corals. We keep water. And if you keep your water good, the rest of it will fall into place. And that, for the most part, is true. Almost all of the problems that we talk about in this hobby, something's happening in my tank, XYZ is going on, it's a water problem. It's not a problem because you put X fish in the tank. Can be sometimes if they're eating all your other fish. But most of the time, any type of algae, any type of bacterial problem, cyano, anything like that, it's almost always a water quality issue. Okay, Kevin says about the hermit crabs, I don't hear much about anyone having extra shells in the tank. Thoughts and opinions on that? Because having the shells all over the sand just doesn't look that appealing. So it is an important thing because if you don't have the shells, they're going to find those shells in their own way, which usually means killing your snails. So I know it's not that appealing. What I usually do is when I find an empty shell, I will pick it up out of the front of the tank somewhere and drop it in the back behind the rocks. They'll find it. That's what I usually do with that. You have any experience with the Kessel lights? Not that much. I had one once upon a time. It was a really nice light, had a very nice coloration, grew my corals very well. I think it was a 360. Kessel 360. But I haven't had one in probably 15 years, maybe even longer than that. Yep, Mark nailed it. Leave the shells at the back. Joe says, how long can I do a blackout on my aquarium without corals being affected? And will the blackout take care of hair algae? So number one, the blackout probably will not do anything for the hair algae. And number two, if you were to do a blackout, 3 days is about the max with corals, right? Hopefully my microphone doesn't die. If it does, let me know. That's why I'm trying to get caught up with the chat. I'm going to try to keep looking at it. Maybe I should just hold it. But so if you're having a hair algae problem, it's most likely a parameter issue. I imagine your phosphates are probably higher than they need to be. with the rest of everything else in the balance of your tank. The unfortunate thing is the hair algae uses up phosphates, so the tank is probably producing more than what you're seeing on your test kit, because the test kit is a snapshot of what's in the water right now, but the tank is continually producing phosphates, right? So the hair algae has to have something to grow on. It has to have fuel, so it soaks up some of the phosphates. So usually the phosphate reading, sometimes it might even be okay, but it's actually not okay because the tank is producing too much, and the okayness is what's left over after the rest is consumed. Does that make sense? I think that made sense. I hope so anyway. This is a great stream, you guys. Y'all got some good questions. So what I would say is, if you're having a green hair algae problem, manual removal is your number one thing that you want to do. Get in there with some tweezers or tongs, rip that stuff out of there, right? Get some cleaners in there that go after hair algae hard, like the big Mexican turbo snails, rock urchins, especially like the Florida rock urchins that you can get from like Tampa Bay Saltwater and reefcleaners.org. Excellent stuff. So add more cleaners, manually remove it, fix the phosphates. That's what I would say. Okay. And 3-day blackout if you have corals. Don't go any more than 3 days. Yeah, hermits will do that, Joe. Let's see what we got. I have 10 hermits in a 40-gallon. How many shells should I scatter around? You know, half a dozen. A lot of fish stores, they'll keep a box of like empty white shells near the counter, right? I'm about to change my apartment and a bit nervous about moving my tank. Any tips? Join my Facebook group. What's this person's name? Rasindu. I think I said that right. I hope I did. If I didn't, I apologize. But join my Facebook group. Look in the featured section. And if you dig through there a little bit, you'll find a post about moving your aquarium that I wrote. It was like an article. There's a ton of tips in there about moving your aquarium. Hey, if you're here and you're enjoying this and you're not subscribed to my channel, why not do that? It would help me out, and I would be able to help you out. So let's do that. Let's work together. Can you go live once a week? I'm learning so much. I'm actually testing my tank and listening at the same time. Keep up the great work. Lucas, your name is Desjardins, like the sailfin tang. That's cool. I really do want to go live once a week, and I actually want to go live twice a week. I would like to do one early in the morning, not early, but in the morning, so that all my friends in Europe and that side of the world could tune in, and then one in the evening like this where my USA people could be in after work and stuff. It's something that I'm working on. It takes a lot out of me to do these lives because I'm still recovering from the back surgery and all that. So I'm working on. I was doing it, but then my throat was giving me issues, so I had to cut back. But I think an hour and a half or 2 hours, a couple times a week, I think we might be able to fit that in. So stay tuned. Be sure you subscribed and have notifications and all that stuff on. This person wants to know if I have any recommendations with ick. Ick, there's a lot. What I would say is I have a video on my channel about ick. It was one of the first ones that I made, so it's pretty far down my feed. But if you don't mind, because there's so much information, it depends on if the fish are in the tank or out of the tank or whatever, go give that video a watch. And I think you'll find the answers that you're looking for there. If you need to move your rock around to adjust for dead spots, is it best to do it at night? Honestly, no. I've never thought about that. But now that I'm thinking about it, I would actually say no, because your fish and everything are trying to hide at night, and they're going to be running from you, and they're going to be trying to hide in and around and amongst the rocks and stuff. And one of them could get squished or something. So honestly, I would say, without really thinking too hugely into it, I would think that moving your rocks in the day when the lights are on would be the better choice. I've really honestly never even thought about it. I always do it when the lights are on because I need to see, So, but yeah, I would say probably I would do it in the daytime. Yeah. George keeps multiple types of firefish in a 4-foot, 150-gallon. Are they going to harass each other? So, contrary to popular belief, firefish are not a communal fish. They don't swim in schools. They are solitary fish. So the best results that you're going to get are going to be keeping them alone. Now, that said, they will pair up, especially a male and female. They'll become a mated pair, and they will then chase all the other ones off and even beat them up until they die. So firefish are actually not a great fish to keep, in a school or a shoal type situation. There are better fish that are more suited for that, but I wouldn't recommend doing it with firefish. That said, in a 4 foot 150, you're probably going to be okay. That's a pretty big tank, pretty small fish, but they're actually not a schooling fish. Let's see. Thoughts on a convict tang in a 75 gallon? I probably wouldn't do it myself. Putting the Zebrasomas tangs into a 75, it's kind of like asking for a problem. You might not have one for a while, but I've done it, but I don't really like to do it now, if that makes sense. I've done it before, but you could, if the bio load was small and it was like the king fish in the tank. You know what I mean? There was nothing else in there that would challenge that fish, but it's still not a whole lot of swimming room for that fish once it reaches an adult size. So I really wouldn't do it. John says your wisdom is outstanding, Logan. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that so much. Listen, guys, I don't claim to have all of the answers, right? I never have. All I want to do is be able to try to help you guys go down the path of doing the right things for your tank. I've made a ton of mistakes, and I have a lot of information about those mistakes. So I appreciate that, John. Thank you very much. When I blow off my rocks and filter it out, aren't I then filtering out a lot of pods? Thank you for doing this. You're going to get some pods probably swimming around and getting filtered out and stuff, but you're not going to put a big dent in the pod population, to be honest with you. They are crammed down inside those rocks and all the little crooked cracks and crevices and all that stuff. You're not going to make a huge dent, I promise. You might get some for sure, but I mean, it's just that's part of the game. It's just going to happen. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. But I wouldn't worry too much about it. I wouldn't let it stop me from cleaning the rocks and doing the water changes. Henry says, besides GSP, I hate GSP, by the way. What can I put on the back glass? Don't want GSP in the tank. Me either. Ideally, something rainbow color or something I can do a garden with. So you could do, hang on a minute, Cyphastria or Cyphastria is what some people call it. C-Y, I suck at spelling. C-Y-P-H-A-S-T-R-E-A. Cyphastria, I think, is how you spell that. But anyway, it's a super cool encruster, and you can get them with little bitty polyps or real big polyps, and they come in awesome colors. Some of them are rainbow colors. You could even do encrusting Montipora. There's a bunch of colors of like rainbow greens, to orange to yellow, encrusting Montipora, stuff like that. Those would be good. What is the other one? Pagoda Cup might be an option. There's another one that's like Cyphastria or Cyphastria, but it's got a different name. I can't remember it right now. But there's some look for encrusting corals. All right, we still got microphone. I don't know how long it's going to last. And when it goes, it's just going to go, and I'm going to have to unplug it, and then you'll get all the background noise. Currently treating my display with fluconazole. Is it okay to use this water to fill my quarantine tank? I just plan on having a couple fish in there. I mean, you could. I don't think it's going to hurt them. Fluconazole, is FluxRx. It is an antifungal, so it's really not going to have an effect on your fish at all. Miguel says Brightwell Phosphate E worked great for me to lower phosphates. Yeah, this stuff works great. It does. That works very well. Mark says, Carol, the pods swim and usually find their way back to safety. Yep, I agree. Cedric has a 35-gallon tank and a 10-gallon sump. Oh, is a 10-gallon sump a good size? So here's the thing with sumps, right? I need to make a dedicated video just talking about sumps. Somebody write down, go watch the whole stream over again and write down everything that I said when I said I needed to make a video, because I don't forgot. But sumps only need to be big enough to contain the equipment that you want to hold in the sump, if that makes any sense. So if you want a refugium, then you're going to need a bigger sump. But if you only want a sump to just have your filter socks and your heaters and maybe a small reactor or two, it doesn't have to be that big at all, you know? So yeah, theoretically, a 35-gallon tank with a 10-gallon sump, that'll work out fine. It's just going to depend on how you lay out that 10-gallon sump so that you can put the equipment that you want in it in there, you know? So yeah, thank you guys for all the great questions. I'm probably going to turn all of these into shorts. That's why I'm doing it vertical. Multiple content. You know, see how professional. Let's see. Hydro says, just tested PO4, NO3. NO3 is 0. Not good. PO4 is 0.1. Oh, between 0.1 and 0.03. That's okay. Not great with nitrates at 0, but that number for the phosphates is not bad. I just got Brightwell nitrate to dose. Will it help balance getting PO4 down? It could, yeah. I don't want to use Rowaphos, okay, and go too far and strip both the NO3 and NO4. So, Symposium. Thank you, K13. That's the one I was talking about. And thank you, Mark, for typing Cyphestria or Cyphestrea in the thing. Appreciate that. So let's Hydro. Yeah, you can bring the if you can't decide if it's 0.03 or 0.1, then I wouldn't try to bring the phosphate down, because if it's getting closer to that 0.03 spot, that's as low as we want it to go, right? So if it's a little bit more blue than that, you're okay, right? So what I would do is just dose the nitrate, get that up to 10, you know, above 5 to 25, whatever, it's fine. 30, it's okay, you know, but get the nitrates up and then see what happens to the phosphates after that, because once you get the nitrates up and all of the organisms in the tank that use those for fuel start using the nitrates and phosphates up, they're going to rebalance themselves. There's going to be a change. It might be very slow and it might be very small, but it'll eventually happen. So I would say for you to just bring the nitrate up. Don't worry about the phosphate right now. See what comes out of the works in the end. Okay, here we go. Jays says, how much dry rock can I add to an established 65-gallon tank and not cause an upset? Wanting to add 3 to 4 pounds. That's fine. Yeah, that's going to be okay. Make sure it's nice and clean. Dry rock won't upset a tank as long as it's clean. And the clean is the important part. So I have seen people ask, and I know you didn't ask this, but for the sake of conversation, I've seen people ask, will adding dry rock to my tank like screw up my nitrogen cycle? And no, it doesn't. It doesn't have any effect on the things that are already happening in the tank. It just adds more surface area for more bacteria to populate. So that takes a little while, but it won't hurt anything as long as it's clean. I would recommend a bleach bath and then a dark cure, and it'll be live again, and then put it in the tank. That's the absolute best scenario. If you've got 2 or 3 months to do that, that's the way that I would go. But if you don't, just make sure that it's really good and clean before you put it in the tank. You might even soak it in RODI water for a week, and then test that with a test kit for phosphates and nitrates to see if it's leaching any out. And if it is, maybe keep soaking it, dark cure it, do that other stuff. But now 3 or 4 pounds, that ain't gonna matter. Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate that spelling. For the first time in 8 months, my 55-gallon tank, my phosphate has been trending up at around 0.24, nitrates around 5. I know these are not optimal, but the coral seem happy and the fish are okay. All right, so this is that situation where if the tank looks good, leave it alone. Or rather, don't make any big changes. In that scenario, I would be keeping a very close eye on things. And if the phosphate keeps creeping up, I would add something to the tank like GFO, but only a quarter of the recommended amount, just to keep that phosphate from rising any further. But phosphates are not our enemy, guys. Phosphates and nitrates are the building blocks of what everything in our tank needs to run and live and grow on, right? So we got to have them in there. That ratio is a little bit out of whack. The traditional knowledge was that we wanted to keep a ratio of about 100 to 1. It's a play on the Redfield ratio, which has nothing to do with corals, by the way. It's got to do with phytoplankton. And the Redfield ratio is 16 to 1. 16 parts nitrate to 1 part phosphate, right? What we would run in Aquaria, what seemed to be the magic spot for many, many years, was 100 to 1. But now people have been doing some additional studies, and people are, we're talking more. There's more happening in the hobby. The people who've been doing it for 30, 40 years, now we're thinking that 50 to 1 might be a better ratio to keep. Bring the nitrates down and the phosphates up a little bit. So as long as your tank looks good with the phosphates at 0.2, I wouldn't do a whole lot about it. If you start seeing algae problems start to show up, then I would bring it down, cut it about in half, and go from there. See how it looks. I use reef crystals and want to switch over to Red Sea Blue Bucket. How's the best way to switch? Just start doing your weekly water changes with the new salt. That's all you got to do. 10% a week with the new salt. Track your parameters. It's going to take several months, but this is the best way to do it because your alkalinity, the reef crystals, is usually very high on alkalinity, right? It's going to start trending down, and it's going to trend down and trend down and trend down over the weeks and weeks and weeks, and then it'll stabilize at about 8 or 8.5 or somewhere, and that's when you know you're done. That's the best way to do it. There are other ways to do it, but you wanted to know the best way, and that's what I would recommend. How do I bring this to normal numbers without shocking my fauna? Should I take out algae from the refugium? No. If you're running algae in your fuge and your phosphates are still at 0.24, your tank is making a heck of a lot of phosphates. Make sure you're cleaning the refugium so there's no dead algae in there or anything like that. Don't take the algae out because that's going to allow your phosphates to go skyrocket, and then you're going to end up with algae that you don't want. So keep your refugium running, clean it, and you might even, if you don't have a skimmer, get one, or if you are running a skimmer, you might want to tune it a little bit more wet to, pull out a little bit more stuff. If you're not doing, there's a person on TikTok, Tranquility Reef, so you can go check them out. They make a bacterial snow, right? And it wasn't their idea. I'm sure they saw it somewhere else. I believe they even said that they did. But they take Microbacter 7 and coral snow, mix those together, stir the tank up, like floof the tank up around, and then put that in the tank. And it does multiple things. It binds all these particulates together that have been stuck to your rocks. It binds them together so they can more easily be filtered out. And the Microbacter 7 in coral snow, the corals actually consume that a little bit. So it's also feeding your corals. It's boosting the bacterial biome in the tank. So you might try that. There's a YouTube video on it too. If you look up like bacteria reef snow, you'll probably find it. You might try that because if you are doing all those things and your phosphate's still going up, that tank is producing phosphates, right? So yeah. This sucker's going to die in a minute. I know it is. We've been going an hour and 40 minutes. Mark says, make the switch. 10% water change will be fine. Yep. Brand new dry rock, says Jay. Put it in the tank. Give it a rinse. Do a little scrub on it just to be sure and put it in. Jeremy says, thank you for preaching that phosphate nitrate aren't the devil. Oh, yeah. No, I was around in reef keeping when we tried to make sure that nitrates and phosphates were 0-0. Our tanks look like crap. But we didn't know what to do otherwise. Connie says, hey, welcome, Connie. Glad to have you here. I'm going to have to listen to this again and take notes. The stream will be available on the channel. It'll probably go up tomorrow as a stream replay in that playlist. So you guys will be able to come back and do that if you want to. Yeah. What wow fish would you put in a 75-gallon tank? What wow fish would I put into a 75? I'm going to go walk over here right quick while I think about that. Wow fish for a 75. If I could only, not a lunar wrasse, absolutely not. No, I won't ever have another lunar wrasse ever again. It would probably have to be an exquisite wrasse, maybe. That's really about the only thing that I can think of that would be like super wow. I mean, you got all the beautiful tangs and, you know, the angelfishes and stuff like that. But in a reef tank, in a 75, you can't really keep most of those. I have a really hard time with this question because I like all the fish. There's not, you know, it's like I like them all. So it's a really difficult question for me to answer, but I would probably go with it would probably end up being some sort of exquisite or flasher wrasse or like a school of them or something like that. Hydro says bubble algae is starting to take over at those low numbers. Would a Pithos crab take care of it? 1 or 2 in an 80? At least 2, maybe even 3 or 4. And yes, they will. Pithos crabs go absolutely nuts for bubble algae. They will annihilate that stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Get yourself several of them, put them in there. Get females if you can, because there's something about the Mithrax species of crabs. The females go after the bubble algae and the other filamentous algae and stuff better than the males do. Don't know why. And there's a way you can tell by the thingy on their belly, the shape of the, I forgot what the anatomy is called, but it's on their belly, the little flappy thing. You can use that to identify male from female. So go with the female and get 3 or 4 of those Pithos crabs, and that bubble algae will be gone in a couple weeks. Thanks for the show. You're welcome, K13. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it, everybody. And just in case my microphone dies, I want to say thanks to everybody for being along for the stream. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes, and it has been nonstop awesome questions. You know, it's one of those streams where we can really tell that you guys are trying to learn about the ecosystems of your aquarium. Almost, I don't think anybody in the stream tonight has asked, like, what can I dump in my tank to make something happen? Nobody said that. That's amazing. I think you guys are doing a great job. Hanging with your mom, Connie. Oh, that's all right. Look, like I said, the stream's going to be up video on demand on my stream replays playlist. So you'll be able to go back and check out all the other stuff that I said. I'm not going to make this thing go away for sure. G Reef says Naso Tang is a wow fish. Yeah, but I wouldn't put a Naso in a 75. I think that tank is probably too small. I'm not leaving just yet, guys. I had planned to go till 9 o'clock, and as long as the microphone holds out, we got another 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to hang around at least till then. But yeah, blonde Nasos are beautiful. I'm going to be putting one in the 210 for sure. But yeah, in a 75, maybe a juvenile, but as they reach their adult size, I would be looking to put them in a bigger tank. Yeah, Mark, of course. Happy that you guys were here for the stream. We've averaged about 45 viewers for the entire time, which is actually really good for YouTube because YouTube's streaming discoverability and stuff is terrible. As a content creator, other people I know, other content creators, we hate the YouTube stream thing, but this is where I wanted to do it because it's the easiest way. That was my kid. You just walk this way. I mean, no, it's fine. I don't care. I mean, you live here, you know? No worries. But so yeah, anyway, YouTube sucks for a streaming platform. I considered some of the other ones, but this one's just better because this is where you guys already are, my subscribers who are really trying to dig in and learn this stuff. You're on YouTube. So, we got some questions. Tank has been running for 5 months, no coralline algae yet. How can I get it? Waiting for coralline before adding coral. Okay, Henry. So you don't need to wait for coralline to pop up before you add any coral to your tank. You will get coralline by adding coral frags that have it on their frag plugs, adding hermits and snails and stuff that have it. There is a product that I have used called Purple Helix. They have a purple and a pink coralline algae in a bottle. And it works. Here comes the cat. It works. It absolutely works. Now, it takes a couple months for it to start working, but once it starts, it goes. So, yeah, don't worry about waiting on the coralline before you add coral. Add the coral now, and the coralline will come. What can I? Okay, Gray, I got you. You can dump fish food in there. That's what you put in that tank to make something happen. G Reef says, what are your thoughts on the reef shiner method? So if you guys haven't heard of it, reef moonshiners is a method of keeping the tank and dosing trace elements to the tank based on ICP testing and stuff like that, so you know exactly what to put in there. I think that it is an excellent way to keep everything on track and where it needs to be in your tank. They even have a guideline over on the Reef Moonshiners page it's a no water change system. So it's a way of running your tank to keep the trace elements going back in, all of the stuff, boron, strontium, molybdenum, anyway, all of those, and iodine, vanadium, and all that. It's to be able to put that stuff back in so the corals can have everything that they need to be as bright and colorful and grow as fast as they can. And I think it's a really great system. It's also really expensive, but it absolutely works. No, you cannot look. You can let me put it this way. You can almost look at a tank and know it's a Reef Moonshiner's tank because the coral's colors are so bright. It's like the tanks used to look when people ran zeovit all the time. We're getting a little bit into advanced reef keeping. There's some of you here who know about this stuff. Zeovit was a whole another system, but you run the tank at an ultra low nutrient system, way down, almost 0 on the nitrates and phosphates, and you dose excess amounts of minerals and trace elements and stuff to the tank. The coral colors were out of this world. They were so bright, but the tank was running on the ragged edge of a crash all the time with zeovit. Now, a lot of people do it. They've perfected it, and their tanks are beautiful. Reef Moonshiners, I think, is a better one. There is another one. There's several of them. There's a Triton method, and then there's also Captive number 8. That's another one. Same kind of situation. That's the one that I'm probably going to go with the tank behind me because it makes dosing really easy. All of their trace elements, except strontium, you can mix into one dosing solution. And they tell you exactly how to do that based on your ICP test. They tell you what to mix together. You dose that to your tank at their recommended amount, and all your trace elements stay where they need to. It's less expensive than moonshiners, but it is still, more expensive than just doing water changes, stuff like that. But you don't get all the trace elements that you need just by doing water changes once a week. Stuff like iodine and fluoride, those are used up really, really, really fast. So unless you're replacing them daily or even sometimes multiple doses per day, they get zapped out of the tank in 24 hours, and then they're not available for the corals anymore by doing the water changes and stuff. So I'm probably going to go with Captivate. But yeah, Reef Moonshiner, love it. It's a great way to go if you can afford to do it. And you have the consistency to order, perform, and do and wait on all of your ICP testing, because it's this whole balance that you have to play with that system. And Captivate's the same way. You have to be consistent with your ICP testing or it doesn't work. Joe says, does Microbacter 7 and Brightwell Purple M do the same thing? No. I think the Brightwell Purple M is the purple non-sulfur bacteria. It is another type of beneficial bacteria. It's supposed to clean up sludge and stuff like that and get it out of the tank. Microbacter 7, that is an OG bacteria in a bottle, and it's 7 big main strains of bacteria that's why it's called Microbacter 7. It's been around for a long time. I remember seeing Microbacter 7 20 years ago, and to my knowledge, it hasn't changed, and it's always worked. Everybody stopped commenting. Are we still going? The clicker's still clicking. The microphone's still working. Somebody drop a comment down below. Just let me know if I'm still talking to people or or if we had a technical difficulty. There hasn't been a comment in probably 5 minutes or so. Yeah, Derek says, this has been great. I'm learning so much. Thank you. Happy to do it, man. I wish I could do it more. I think something's going on here because I'm not seeing any more comments. Baby, can you hop into my stream and comment? I just need to see if it's popping back up because I haven't seen any in a bit, but it still says that everybody's here. And my microphone is still working. I still hear me on your side. Do-do-do-do. Maybe it's maybe everybody just got tired. Maybe everybody fell asleep. Oh.
I texted there several other people commenting.
Oh no, it's not. They're not showing up on my end. What happened, YouTube? Come on. Yeah, the last comment that I have is the one from Derek that says, "This has been great. I'm learning so much." I have no chat after that.
Crap.
Well, that's unfortunate and a little bit annoying. Why did they cut the chat off? I wonder if I said something or if somebody else maybe said something that we weren't supposed to say. I don't know. Let's see. Channel activity. Yeah, I don't know. Paul Ramos said log.
But yes, did you speak about the Mantis, about a Mantis tank?
I did not get to talk about Mantis tanks. Is that Connie?
That's Connie.
Yeah, I remember her.
You want me to read you the,
So you're gonna have to turn me down on your phone.
okay.
What did Connie say? She was asking about mantis shrimps.
She said, did you speak about the Mantis tank?
No, I didn't. And listen, guys, it's been an hour and 52. So let me answer Connie. I apologize that we've had some sort of a thing here. I can't read the comments anymore. It's not working for me. So let me talk about what I would do if I was going to have a mantis shrimp tank, and then we're going to call it, right? So mantis are freaking cool. Peacock mantis are my favorite, probably everybody's favorite because they're so bright and colorful, green, purple, blue, orange. Did you guys know that mantis shrimp have the most advanced eyes of any animal in the entire animal kingdom? They can see something like 250 million different colors. Like humans see like 32. And oh, it says I'm live. No kidding, I'm live. I've been live for 2 hours. Where have you been, YouTube? I'm so confused right now. It started my timer back over again. Is it still working?
Yeah. Yeah, you're working for me.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about mantis right quick. So what I would do, Connie, is I would probably set up a mantis shrimp tank as a macro algae tank. So you could do it with corals if you wanted, but obviously you're not going to be able to keep hermit crabs and stuff like that, and they're not going to be able to hide from the mantis shrimp as much. So doing a mantis tank with a macro tank is going to allow the macro algae to kind of take the place of your cleaners and stuff like that. Keep the nutrient levels where they should be, because mantis shrimps are nasty, right? They eat live crabs and other things. Some of them eat fish and whatnot, the spearing kind. You got to feed them fish, all right? So they make a lot of a mess. They make a big mess. And so, yeah, I would set it up as a macro algae tank. One of the things that you're going to want is a lot of little rock caves and stuff. You could even take PVC piping, build a network of tunnels that go under the sand where they're all connected together, but there's like a bunch of them, right? And then have 2 or 3 or 4 outlets where the mantis can go down through all of that and chase stuff down through there. You do still want to have a decent amount of flow in the tank, but not too much. What size for a mantis? I would probably do at least like a 30. do 30, 32, something like that, you know, something in that range. You could go bigger if you wanted to. But, you know, so kind of hard to see one once they get, you know, dug down into everything. But yeah, so I would go somewhere around that, you know, 30, 32, something like that. The glass is going to be thick enough that it's not going to be a problem. I've seen the video of the mantis shrimp busting the glass or cracking the glass on the tank. I think that tank was already compromised, and I think it was a cheap like Petco tank or something with really thin glass. They are strong animals, and they pack a serious punch. But I don't think they're going to break the glass on something like a 32 or a 40 gallon. I think it'd be really cool. You know, macroalgae tank. Talk to Amanda, the macro lady. I don't want to mispronounce her last name, but I know you know who I'm talking about. She's in my group. She comments in there all the time. Talk to her about what macro would be awesome to pair up with a mantis, because she has a bunch of cool stuff. I'm going to be doing a macro in my 40, and that's where the mated pair of mandarin dragonettes are going to go. Normally, I wouldn't recommend those fish for a 40, but I'm going to have a lot of rock in there. And it's going to be that planted, you know, the macroalgae scenario. So there's going to be tons of room for pods, plenty of room for those fish to hunt and everything. Okay, let me look at my list right quick. Oh, Connie had asked another question in the group. Let's cover that right quick while I still have a little bit of microphone left. It says best cleanup crew in all categories and how many per gallon of the tank to be effective. So what I would say is let's go with, I'm gonna hold this. Hang on. Tired of taking my glasses off to look at this thing, so I'm just gonna hold it like this, right? So generally speaking, you're gonna want 1 to 2 cleaners per gallon of aquarium. Now, you're not going to want to put them all in at the beginning when the aquarium is still establishing itself and all of that, right? You want to do it a little bit over time. But eventually, after 6 months, you know, or so of the tank being set up, you want to have at least 1 cleaner per gallon of water. Now, I like to mix that up. You don't want all Astrea snails, right? So the ones that I typically try to go for, I'll have several Mexican turbo snails, the big dudes, you know, the big, like bigger than a golf ball size ones. I'll have, you know, 3, 4, 5 of those. I'm going to have at least half a dozen of them guys in this 210 behind me. I also like Astreas. A lot of people don't like them because when they fall down, they can't flip themselves over. They become food for the other cleaners, right? They're sort of an expendable thing because they're dumb. But I like the golden Astreas. They do a very good job cleaning the tank. And if you have to replace them sometimes, you just do. Cerith snails are another good one, Cerith. These are a very good snail. They like to hang out on the rocks. They will go on the glass, but not as much, right? And so those are a very good one to have as well. There is a dwarf cerith that you can get, a little bitty guys about this big, you know, 2 millimeters or something like that. You can put hundreds of them in a tank. You almost can't have can't have too many. They get into all the little bitty nooks and crannies and stuff inside the rocks and all that kind of stuff. So those are very good. Ox tongue nearite snails are one of the only snails that will eat bryopsis and lyngbia. They can handle the toxins of that toxic algae. So I have some. I bought some. I'm going to be adding more into the 210 just as a matter of, you know, being over abundance of caution, setting this tank back up. So those are very good. You can get some chitons. You can order them from Reef Cleaners. They come from Florida. Those guys they have the strongest teeth in the entire animal kingdom. Their teeth are stronger than diamond, and they will literally scrape all of the everything off of a piece of live rock. They will scrape it back to white, clean live rock. You can see the little trails where they go, but they're very slow. They're very strong too, but they're cool to have in there. Probably, you know, I'll probably put 4 or 5 in this tank just to help keep things going along. Couple of urchins. What else? There was some more that I was thinking of earlier when you asked me this question. Ox tongue neorites. Regular neorites are cool, but they lay eggs all over everything, so meh. And I apologize. I don't see your guys' questions. I'm sorry about that. So That's pretty much a good go-to. If you can get stomatella snails, dove snails, that's the other one that I was thinking of. Dove snails breed regularly in aquaria. So if you can get a hold of a couple of dozen dove snails and put them in your tank, you will probably end up with more dove snails over time. So that's a very good one. They do breed successfully in aquaria, and it's not that hard to breed them either. You'll see a little globule like on the glass sometimes or on your pumps or whatever, and it'll have a bunch of little green balls inside of it. That's what the dove snail eggs look like. So yeah, this thing is flashing at me now, so I'm thinking we're probably getting to being done with this microphone. So I'm going to go ahead and thank everybody for joining us for the stream tonight. It was an awesome stream. There was tons of great information. You guys are all asking the right questions, and I really appreciate you being here for this. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. Turn the notification bell on. If you're not following me in all of the other places, TikTok, Facebook, all of that stuff, jump over there, follow me in those places, because all of my content is not all in one place. We're doing a contest right now on Facebook. Somebody's going to win a $500 or $600 skimmer and some lights from Delua. So that's going to be very cool. Excited to see all that happen. But I'm going to have to call it quits. My throat's tired. I'm tired. The microphone's tired. And obviously YouTube's tired. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining me. It would be awesome if you want to continue the conversation. If you have additional questions, jump into the Facebook group, ask those, and I'll see you over there. Thanks.